Eli worked nights delivering food because it kept him moving and left no room for thoughts to settle. The glow of the app guided him from one order to the next, little blue pins pulling him across the city. Most nights were routine, bags of takeout handed off to tired students or families who barely looked up from their screens. But one night, just after 1 a.m., he received an order from an address he didn't recognize. It was across the river, in a neighborhood the app rarely touched. The payout was unusually high. He crossed the bridge, streets empty, but for the occasional flicker of a traffic light. The address led him down narrow roads where the houses leaned into each other, their windows black. When he pulled up, he realized the building wasn't a house at all, but an old boarding house with peeling paint and shuttered windows. The order read simply, "Deliver to Aptum 3, leave at the door." Eli carried the bag up creaking steps. The hall smelled of damp plaster. Apartment 3 was at the end, its door painted red, the number barely clinging. He set the bag down and snapped a photo for proof. As he turned to leave, he heard a sound from inside, a wet shuffle, like bare feet dragging across wood. Then softly, someone whispered his name. Eli froze. No one should know his name. He hadn't knocked, hadn't called out. The order was anonymous. He bent to pick up the bag, thinking maybe he'd heard wrong, but the voice came again, clearer this time. Eli. He left the bag and hurried back to his car. His phone buzzed as he started the engine. The app showed the order as complete, tip added. But instead of the usual thanks, a new message appeared. Come back. He drove fast, wanting to put distance between himself and the building. But after a few blocks, the streets looked wrong. He passed the same boarded shops again, the same tilted lamppost, until he realized he was circling. The GPS arrow spun, refusing to guide him out. Another order appeared. Same address, same instructions, deliver to Aptum 3. His chest tightened. He tried to decline, but the button dimmed uselessly. The message pulsed. Accept. Against reason, he found himself turning back. The bag he'd delivered was gone when he reached the red door. Another sat in its place, plain white, no restaurant logo. It wasn't his, yet the app marked it under his name. The door creaked just slightly, though no one stood there. The smell that leaked out was sweet and metallic, like spoiled fruit and rust. He left the second bag and fled again, sweat chilling his skin. His phone buzzed once more. Good. Now one more. The map updated, pointing him deeper into the neighborhood, toward a building that didn't appear on any real map. It rose at the end of a street that hadn't existed before, a tall, narrow house with no windows. The app insisted, deliver to Aptum 3. Inside the bag was not food, but a jar, heavy and sloshing, its contents dark and thick. He didn't want to touch it, but when he set it down, the jar rattled as if something moved inside. The door opened fully this time. The hall beyond stretched into darkness, lined with doors, each marked with the number 3. From within came the same dragging footsteps, closer, nearer, until a pale hand reached through the gap and brushed his wrist. Cold burned his skin where it touched. He dropped the bag and bolted, nearly tumbling down the steps. His car started, but the dashboard glowed red. The screen on his phone displayed dozens of new orders, all from the same address, all marked under his account. His balance shot upward with impossible tips, climbing into the thousands. The phone buzzed again, and across the screen spread a final message. Deliver yourself. The locks in the car clicked shut. The engine roared, but the wheel turned on its own, guiding him back down the narrow street. In the rearview mirror, he saw the reflection of Apartment 3's red door, already swinging open, wider, waiting. Eli's story never made the news. His car was found abandoned near the river a week later, the engine still warm, his phone on the passenger seat. The app was open, dozens of unclaimed orders flashing, each marked for the same address. Drivers who pass through that part of town say sometimes they receive a ping at 1 a.m, high payout, easy delivery. Apartment 3. And if you listen closely when you approach the door, you can hear a voice whispering your name, promising tips you'll never spend. Jared took the late-night delivery shifts because they paid better, though he hated the silence of empty streets. The app buzzed at 12:42 a.m, sending him to an order from a restaurant he'd never heard of, Midnight Kitchen. He frowned at the name. No address, no phone number, just the app generating a location pin on the edge of the city. The payout was unusually high, nearly triple the normal rate. His gut told him to ignore it, but he was behind on rent and couldn't afford pride. The restaurant was hidden in a strip of half-abandoned warehouses. Its sign was a sheet of metal with faded letters, the interior lit by a single hanging bulb. When Jared entered, a woman behind the counter handed him a plain black bag. There was no smell of food, no receipt, no logo. "Apartment 6C, she said, voice flat. He tried to ask questions, but she was already looking past him as if he weren't there. The delivery address led him to a tower on the far side of town. It was a building he'd never noticed before, though he knew the area well. 30 stories tall, its windows were all dark, yet the lobby lights glowed when he pulled up. He carried the bag inside. The elevator was waiting, doors open, humming faintly as though it had been expecting him. Inside, the buttons were stripped of numbers save for one, 6. He pressed it, and the elevator began its slow climb. Halfway up, the lights flickered and the air grew damp, smelling of mildew and something coppery. The bag in his hands shifted as though something inside moved. He almost dropped it, but the elevator chimed and opened to a hallway lined with peeling wallpaper. Every door read 6C in crooked brass numbers. Jared's pulse hammered. He chose the nearest door, set the bag down, and snapped the required photo. The instant he stood, the door creaked open. The hallway filled with the stench of rot. A hand emerged, long, grey-skinned, with too many joints, and dragged the bag inside. The door shut with a final click. His phone chimed, delivery complete, tip pending. He backed into the elevator and jabbed the lobby button, desperate to leave. The doors closed, but instead of descending, the car climbed higher. The screen above flickered between numbers that didn't exist. 31, 47, 99. The hum grew louder, almost a chant. Jared gripped the rail, whispering to himself. When the doors finally opened, it wasn't the lobby waiting. It was the same hallway of peeling wallpaper, lined with doors, everyone marked 6C. He stumbled out, panicked. The floor beneath the carpet felt soft, like walking on damp earth. He tried door after door, each one locked, each one rattling under his desperate pulls. From behind them came noises, slurping, scratching, the muffled sound of someone crying. Then, from farther down the hall, one door slowly swung open. Darkness pooled inside, thick as tar. A voice whispered his name from within. Not shouted, whispered, the way someone might coax a pet into a cage. His body wanted to move, but he fought it, backing away toward the elevator. The doors closed behind him with a snap, as if the building had made the choice for him. The car dropped violently, floors ticking by too fast, his stomach lurching. It stopped at the lobby with a crash. Jared bolted through the doors and didn't stop running until he reached his car. He drove home in silence, hands shaking, phone buzzing with new order requests he refused to touch. The next morning, he tried to tell himself it was exhaustion. He checked the app, expecting the order to be gone. Instead, his balance had tripled overnight. Every pending tip marked as processed, but under his completed deliveries, every line read the same. Apartment 6C, dozens of them, all time-stamped after he'd fled. That night, his phone buzzed at 12:42 a.m., a new order from Midnight Kitchen, same payout, same instructions. He threw the phone into a drawer, buried it under clothes, and tried to sleep. But sometime after midnight, he heard a knock at his door. Soft, deliberate, 3 taps. When he peered through the peephole, no one was there. Just a plain black bag sitting on his welcome mat. His phone buzzed from the drawer. Delivery in progress. Apartment 6C, Jared hasn't been seen since. Some drivers whisper about him when they gather at gas stations between shifts. They say sometimes their apps glitch at 12:42 a.m., showing an order from Midnight Kitchen. If you decline, nothing happens, except you'll hear knocking at your door the next night. If you accept, you'll be guided to the tower with no windows, no tenants, only endless halls of 6C. And once you start, you never stop delivering. Alex bike deliveries because it kept him moving, kept his head clear. And the city was different when most people were asleep. The glow of the phone mounted on his handlebars was his compass. Friday nights were usually busy, but this one dragged, order after order, small and routine. Around 2 a.m., when he was ready to call it, a request popped up from a restaurant he knew had closed hours earlier. The payout was unusually high. His finger hovered over decline, but curiosity and rent pressure pushed him to accept. The restaurant's doors were locked, lights out. Still, a bag waited neatly on the stoop, warm to the touch, though no one had left it. It was heavy, heavier than food should be, the plastic straining against the handles. He slung it onto his back and checked the address. It led him across town to a row of houses built in the 50s, all nearly identical, their lawns ragged, their windows dark. The house number matched, but the windows were boarded, the front door chained. He set the bag on the porch and snapped the confirmation photo. His phone buzzed before he could pedal off. Knock first. The words appeared on the app itself, not as a message from the customer. His stomach clenched, but he rapped once. The chain rattled, though no one touched it. He left the bag and rode away fast, promising himself he'd forget it. Blocks later, his phone chimed again. Another order. Same restaurant, same payout, different address. This time the building was an apartment tower with no lights on inside. The lobby doors hung open and the smell of mildew hit him as soon as he wheeled in. The elevator was dead, so he carried the bag up 6 flights, footsteps echoing too loudly in the stairwell. Apartment 6B waited at the end of a hall. The door was ajar, a thin slice of blackness inside. He hesitated, then set the bag down and backed away. His phone buzzed. "Take it inside," he muttered a curse. But the app wouldn't let him complete the order without complying. He nudged the bag across the threshold with his foot. The air inside was wet and sour, thick enough that his eyes watered. He snapped a photo with shaking hands, then turned to flee. The door swung shut behind him with a low groan. He raced down the stairs 2 at a time, heart hammering. Outside, his bike was gone. Only the faint squeak of its wheels echoed down the empty street. His phone chimed. "Your next delivery is waiting." A new bag sat on the sidewalk, identical to the others, steaming faintly in the cool night. This time the address led him back toward the city center. Relief surged until he realized the streets he followed weren't familiar anymore. Buildings leaned too close, windows glared too bright, and the air smelled like rust. He carried the bag through blocks that didn't exist on any map, finally arriving at a doorless building with a single slot cut into its wall. His phone flashed. "Insert delivery." He slid the bag into the slot, hands trembling. Something yanked it away on the other side with a wet, greedy sound. His balance tipped and he nearly followed, but the slot slammed shut. His phone buzzed again. Balance, 666666. He stared, then laughed nervously, thinking maybe it was a prank, but the orders didn't stop. They came one after another, each stranger, each leading him deeper into places he swore weren't there before. A playground where the swings creaked, though no wind blew. A church with no cross, its pews filled with shadows. A tunnel where the lights flickered to reveal things too tall to be human. Each time the bag was waiting for him. Each time his app insisted. Each time the reward balance climbed. By dawn he was exhausted, shoes soaked, phone buzzing endlessly. His balance showed numbers impossible, higher than any driver could earn in years. He wanted to stop, to throw the phone away, but when he tried to shut the app, the screen burned his eyes with a single command: final delivery. The address was his own apartment. He staggered there as the sky lightened, the city around him back to normal, as though the night had never shifted. A black bag sat outside his door. It pulsed faintly, as though something inside was breathing. His phone told him to take it in. His chest tightened. He left it where it was and stumbled down the hall, deciding to never look back. But when he returned later with friends, the bag was gone. On his phone, the order had been marked completed. Under his balance, a new line appeared: tips, pending. The total had frozen, but the app still pulsed faintly, waiting. Sometimes, long after, he swore he heard a knock at his door at 2 a.m., soft and steady. Each time when he checked the hallway, a bag sat on the mat, always the same, always waiting, and no matter how many times he ignored them, the app never let him uninstall, never let him log out, never stopped pulsing with new orders. Trevor liked food delivery because it was simple: pick up, drop off, get paid. He worked nights since there was less traffic, though sometimes the quiet streets made him feel like the last person left alive. On a cold Wednesday near midnight, he accepted an order from a Chinese place he knew well. The bag was warm and smelled normal enough: fried rice, dumplings, but the delivery address was a part of town he didn't recognize. Still, the payout was generous, and he needed the money. The GPS guided him away from the glow of downtown and into an older district where the houses were too far apart and the streetlights worked only in patches. When he finally reached the destination, his headlights fell on a large Victorian house sagging under the weight of years. The porch steps leaned and curtains hung crooked in the windows. But the porch light was on, glowing yellow, and the number matched the order. The instructions said, "Hand it to the customer. Do not leave at door." Trevor climbed the porch and knocked. After a moment, the door creaked open. A man stood there, thin, pale, dressed in clothes that looked a few decades out of date. He smiled without showing his teeth. "You're fast," the man said. His voice was oddly dry, like paper rasping. Trevor handed him the bag. The man's hands were too cold for skin that should have been alive. He took the food and gestured inside. "Come in for a moment. I need to get your tip." Trevor started to refuse, but the app chimed in his pocket. A message lit up the screen. "Wait for tip." The man's eyes glinted as if he'd read the message too. Against his better judgment, Trevor stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of dust and something sour. The wallpaper peeled and the light bulbs glowed weakly. He noticed the house was silent, not even the hum of a fridge or the ticking of a clock. The man set the bag on a table and left the room, footsteps fading deeper into the house. Trevor shifted, uncomfortable. The air felt heavy, and the silence pressed down on him. Then he noticed the table. It was covered in old receipts from restaurants all across the city, some dated years ago. Each bore a driver's name scribbled in pencil, though the paper was brittle and yellowed. From deeper in the house came a sound, not footsteps, whispering. Dozens of voices, low and overlapping, though no words were clear. Trevor called out, voice shaking, "Hey, I should get going." The man returned, carrying not money but another bag, identical to the one Trevor had delivered. He pressed it into Trevor's hands. "One more favor. Drop this off for me," Trevor stammered. "That's not how this works." The man tilted his head. "The app knows. It already assigned it to you." Trevor's phone buzzed. A new order had appeared, same house as pickup. New delivery address, the cemetery outside of town. The payout number was absurd, more than he'd ever seen for a single delivery. His stomach knotted. "I don't think so," Trevor whispered, backing toward the door. But when he tried the knob, it wouldn't turn. The man just watched him, pale smile unchanging. Trevor bolted through the nearest hallway, bag still clutched in his hand. The house stretched longer than it had looked outside. Corridor after corridor, each lined with doors. Behind the doors, the whispers grew louder, urgent. He caught glimpses through cracks, faces pressed to the gaps, pale eyes watching him pass. Finally, he found another exit and burst into the night air, running to his car. He locked the doors, heart hammering, and threw the bag onto the passenger seat. It shifted on its own, something inside moving with a wet slosh. He almost hurled it out the window, but froze when his phone buzzed again. "Deliver it!" The car engine roared to life by itself, dashboard glowing even though he hadn't turned the key. The wheel jerked, steering toward the cemetery. He fought it, knuckles white, but the car followed the route as if dragged by invisible hands. The cemetery gates loomed. They were wide open, though he knew they should have been locked at night. Gravel crunched under his tires as the car rolled between rows of stones. His headlights lit the delivery pin on his map, hovering over a crumbling mausoleum at the far end. The car stopped. The locks clicked open. His phone buzzed. "Hand it to the customer." Trevor grabbed the bag, bile rising in his throat. He stepped out into the cold, the silence of the cemetery broken only by the creak of the mausoleum door swinging open. Darkness gaped inside. A figure emerged, shrouded, features lost in shadow. It reached out, long fingers stretching toward the bag. He gave it over, hands trembling. The figure clutched it and retreated without a sound. The door closed with a thud. Trevor's phone chimed. Delivery complete, tip pending. His balance jumped into numbers that made no sense. He turned back toward his car, desperate to leave. But the headlights revealed the rows of tombstones stretching endlessly, far more than any cemetery should hold. The path he had driven was gone, swallowed by graves. His car sat alone, engine idling, waiting. When he slid inside, the app displayed his next order. Same restaurant, same Victorian house. The pickup time glowed red. Now! Trevor screamed, but the car was already turning, steering him back the way he'd come. He never made it home. Some drivers whisper his story, claiming they've seen the order themselves. Late-night requests from restaurants long closed, payout too good to ignore. They say if you take it, the app starts controlling more than your route. And if you deliver enough bags, one night the app stops asking for food. It asks for you. The restaurant's doors were locked, lights out. Still, a bag waited neatly on the stoop, warm to the touch though no one had left it. It was heavy, heavier than food should be, the plastic straining against the handles. He slung it onto his back and checked the address. It led him across town to a row of houses built in the 50s, all nearly identical, their lawns ragged, their windows dark. The house number matched, but the windows were boarded, the front door chained. He set the bag on the porch and snapped the confirmation photo. His phone buzzed before he could pedal off. "Knock first." The words appeared on the app itself, not as a message from the customer. His stomach clenched, but he rapped once. The chain rattled, though no one touched it. He left the bag and rode away fast, promising himself he'd forget it. Blocks later, his phone chimed again. Another order. Same restaurant, same payout, different address. This time, the building was an apartment tower with no lights on inside. The lobby doors hung open, and the smell of mildew hit him as soon as he wheeled in. The elevator was dead, so he carried the bag up 6 flights, footsteps echoing too loudly in the stairwell. Apartment 6B waited at the end of a hall. The door was ajar, a thin slice of blackness inside. He hesitated, then set the bag down and backed away. His phone buzzed. "Take it inside," he muttered a curse, but the app wouldn't let him complete the order without complying. He nudged the bag across the threshold with his foot. The air inside was wet and sour, thick enough that his eyes watered. He snapped a photo with shaking hands, then turned to flee. The door swung shut behind him with a low groan. He raced down the stairs 2 at a time, heart hammering. Outside, his bike was gone. Only the faint squeak of its wheels echoed down the empty street. His phone chimed. "Your next delivery is waiting." A new bag sat on the sidewalk, identical to the others, steaming faintly in the cool night. This time, the address led him back toward the city center. Relief surged until he realized the streets he followed weren't familiar anymore. Buildings leaned too close, windows glared too bright, and the air smelled like rust. He carried the bag through blocks that didn't exist on any map, finally arriving at a doorless building with a single slot cut into its wall. His phone flashed. "Insert delivery." He slid the bag into the slot, hands trembling. Something yanked it away on the other side with a wet, greedy sound. His balance tipped and he nearly followed, but the slot slammed shut. His phone buzzed again. Balance, 666666. He stared, then laughed nervously, thinking maybe it was a prank, but the orders didn't stop. They came one after another, each stranger, each leading him deeper into places he swore weren't there before. A playground where the swings creaked, though no wind blew.